All right. They just give like 2 to 3 minutes for those people that are just joining. So we have more people on the call.
Okay, okay. So Samuel, I think we can go live on YouTube now. Thank you.
Yeah, we are live. I'm sharing you the link now. Or you can just go to Let's Connect to our public. But we are live.
Okay, Yusuf, I think we can start now, please. Yusuf, are you there? Yusuf, please confirm if you can hear me. I think we can start now.
Yes, we can hear you.
We can hear you, sir.
Yes, we can hear you, sir. We can proceed.
All right, so I think we can start. I was waiting for the moderator, but he has dropped off now. So I think we'll start. So good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to Module 1 of our AMR Language Champions training. Today we are privileged to have a very highly respected professional, public health professional who has a vast experience in public health speak to us on Module 1, which is Introduction to Antimicrobial Resistance. So I want to warmly welcome you this evening. Please confirm if you can hear me, maybe with me.
Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
All right, perfect, perfect. Thank you very much. So I'll be reading the bio of our speaker, Nancy Infioma Inzelu. She's a public health veterinarian, lecturer and researcher at Joseph Sawo Antaka University, Makurdi in Nigeria. She currently serves as the departmental exam officer for the Veterinary Public Health and Preventive Medicine Department, as well as the seminar coordinator for the College of Veterinary Medicine in Justin. Dr. Nzelu supervises both postgraduate and undergraduate research. Her research is focused on parasitic zoonosis, One Health, food safety, and neglected tropical diseases. She is passionate about community health promotion. Dr. Nancy has a developing interest in artificial intelligence and digital health. She was recently selected as a cohort participant in the ICARES International Center for Artificial Intelligence Research and Ethics Women Elevate program, and an innovative effort aimed at empowering 5,000 women through Microsoft AI training. Dr. Nzelu earned her tertiary academic degrees from the prestigious Ahmadu Bello University, Zaria, Nigeria. She's a member of the Nigerian Veterinary Medical Association. Dr. Nzelu has received many awards, including a Commonwealth Scholarship at the Royal Veterinary College in London, a Biology Week Outreach and Engagement Grant from the Royal Society of Biology, and many others. She has multiple peer-reviewed journals and has participated in both local and international conferences. She is more known by her middle name, Nancy, among her peers and acquaintances. Dr. Nancy is married with three children and has spare time. She enjoys watching films, listening to music, and spending time with our friends. Ladies and gentlemen, please let's welcome Dr. Nancy Zelu, our speaker this evening. Thank you so much, man, for coming this evening. A quick one, we'll be sharing a pre-test. Please quickly take the test as she begins her presentation. Yeah, thank you. Over to you, man. If you are speaking, you are muted.
Okay,
Please. Thank
sorry.
you,
Can
man.
you hear me right now? You
Yes,
can
I
hear
can
me
hear
right
you
now,
now.
right? Loud
Yes,
and
man.
clear.
Yes, man. Very well, man.
Sorry about that. I was muted. Yes. So I was saying good morning, good afternoon to everyone who have joined today's meeting. It's lovely to be here. I'm honored to be here. My name is Dr. Mrs. Ifomana Nzelu. I'm a lecturer with the Joseph Sawan Taka University in Benue State, Nigeria. And today we'll be discussing, I'll be taking the module 1 of the training, the AMR Language Champions Voice Video program. So today we'll be discussing on introduction in antimicrobial resistance and One Health. So we'll be discussing about antimicrobial resistance and One Health. I know that a lot of us have heard about it, so much about it, but we need to understand what is AMR, what is One Health. So at this point, you permit me to pull up my slide. And at the same time, because of the bandwidth of streaming, I would you permit me to off my video so that I could have a very strong projection. Thank you. So let me pull up my slide very quickly. Can you see my slide? Is it visible now?
Yes, your slide is visible now.
Yes, it is visible.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So now for this presentation, this will be the outline for this presentation. One, we're going to define and discuss what antimicrobial resistance is. What are the causes and drivers of antimicrobial resistance? What is the burden? What is the impact of AMR? And the One Health concept. What do we mean by One Health approach? What is this One Health concept everybody's talking about? And so we'll be discussing that today. Another thing we'll be discussing is community level implications. What are the implications of AMR in our communities? And what are those preventive strategies that can be used, to circumvent the after effects of AMR? So these are what we'll be discussing today. So we'll ask ourselves, why are we having this conversation? Why are we all here today? Why are we all selected to be here? Why did you decide to go in for the Voice Vigil AMR language champion training? Why did you decide to be here? This is because this conversation is very important. Now, I want you to imagine a world where common infections cannot be treated. For example, you have a child of 4 years that has malaria. Children, when they have malaria, they usually come with very high fever. You have these children, and then they are down having very high fever, and then you have treated with a certain drug. No, the disease or the infection refuses to resolve. The child doesn't get better. You go back to the hospital again. Another drug is being prescribed, and this same drug, it doesn't work again. The child remains sick. The child remains having high fever. And for children, I've had 3 of them, and at night I do not sleep. You imagine the kind of fever they have at night, very high fever. So imagine you in that kind of situation, your child is not getting better. You yourself, you have common cold, and you have taken like 3 different antibiotics, you are still coughing, you still have fever, the issue has not been resolved. This is just the same scenario of antimicrobial resistance. Imagine in a world where common infection cannot be treated. AMR, as you see it, is a silent pandemic. The hype might not be as COVID, but I tell you, it is a silent one that is going on, threatening the world and threatening Africa the most. And so we ask ourselves, what is antimicrobial resistance? Now, antimicrobial resistance, this happens when microorganisms, that is microorganisms I mean by bacteria, viruses, fungi, parasites, they stop responding to medicine. The normal medicine that they usually respond, they don't respond anymore. It means that antibiotics, antiviral, antifungal, antiparasitics, they lose their power. These drugs cannot kill these microorganisms anymore. This leads to infections becoming very harder to treat, leading to longer illness and sometimes death. There's an increased risk of disease spread because if the individual is not getting better, and there are in contact persons in this, say for example, other family members who are around the same individual, and this disease is a communicable one, it is possible. And if that individual is susceptible to that disease, it is possible that individual will get those around that, the in contact person of that infected person, sick person, can be infected. Because the drugs they have been using to treat is not resolving the issue. So there is a risk of disease spread, severe illness of the affected individual, and death. So this medicine, the normal medicine, will become ineffective and infection persists in the body. That is antimicrobial resistance. Now, antimicrobial resistance, it does not just appear. Am I still audible? Am I still audible? Please indicate if I'm still audible.
Yes, you are
Very well,
audible.
ma'am.
Yes,
All right, thank you very much.
Yes, madam.
Now, antimicrobial resistance does not just develop, it doesn't just appear. It's not evil spirit, it's evil as in like maybe a traditional herbalist for anyway. Oh yeah, take antimicrobial resistance. It does not appear like that. Some things causes antimicrobial resistance to happen. And we want to find out what are those things that actually cause antimicrobial resistance to occur. Now, but before we jump into that, I want us to this might be going deeper, but I just want to like give us a summary of what it looks like. How does AMR develop? How does organisms begin to develop resistance? Now, antimicrobial resistance, they develop through natural evolutionary process, which is accelerated by human activities like antibiotic overuse, misuse. Now, microorganisms, they evolve. What they now do that these microorganisms, they evolve defenses against these drugs that are designed to kill them. They come up with defensive mechanisms, which would include enzyme, for example, enzymes. They might begin to produce enzymes that destroy the antibiotics, like the beta-lactamases. There could also be pumps. They develop pumps in the cell. That's the bacterial cell. If you look at this picture, you will see a bacterial cell. You will see what you see a part where you have efflux pumps. Now, some of these antimicrobial organisms, they develop this pump, which is now used to expel drugs. When you take this drug, the drug is supposed to permeate the membrane of the microorganisms, get into the microorganism, and then kill it, perhaps cause cell death. This time around, because of that pump, it will expel the drug. In some situations, it will lead to target modifications that will prevent the binding of the drug to the cell membrane of the organism. Or it could be barriers that limit drug entry. It's a whole lot of issues there. So this bacteria, how do they get this resistance? They can get it via genetic, what we call genetic mutations. Or they could be horizontal gene transfer. When you have resistant organisms and there are other organisms, species of the same organism or other microbes within the same biome. Let's, for example, the guts microbiome. There could be the transfer, just because they are all there together. There could be what we call horizontal gene transfer, a transfer of the resistant gene from one of the microorganism to the other organism. So this is how in a small, I just tried to put the thing in a very small, concise way. This is how bacteria gain resistance, how they develop, they become resistant to drugs. So there are now things that causes these organisms to become resistant. Example, from the image you have here, overuse of antibiotics. The overuse of antibiotics, when you continue to take antibiotics unnecessary, these antibiotics will kill susceptible bacteria in your system, and then leaving the resistant ones. The resistant ones will persist for a long time because they are resistant to that particular antibiotics. They persist and then eventually get out of your system, perhaps contaminate the environment maybe by open defecation. And from open defecation, in that feces now, you have resistant organisms in that feces, which by perhaps runoff water from agricultural activities gets into our drinking water, gets into the stream. And there are people who drink open water sources. So you see from this scenario, you can see how the human component comes in. You can also see, now, for example, that runoff water, you could also have agricultural activities where animal manure are used for growing our plants, all right? And there are cases of use of antibiotics in livestock production, overuse of these antibiotics in livestock production. Again, when this happens, it suppresses the susceptible ones, leaving out the resistant ones, which eventually get into the environment, vis-a-vis via water or via contaminated food, and then eventually gets to humans. So from this scenario, you will see that humans are connected, animals are connected, then our environment is connected. So this is one of the drivers of AMR. The problem is multi-sectorial. So to solve this problem, you have to use a multi-sectorial approach. Another cause of a driver of antimicrobial resistance is poor sanitation. Poor sanitation, environmental factors like presence of heavy metals and bacterial biofilms in our water source. All right. Again, you could have hospital waste, the antibiotic waste from hospital getting into our open water sources, which individuals drink. All right. Again, from pharmaceutical manufacturing, the pollution from pharmaceutical companies, the antibiotic effluent gets into, if water is not properly treated, this water, these pollutants or these antibiotics, or also the resistant bacteria that who possibly could be there, gets into the water source for humans. And when humans consume this water without proper treatment, you will see that they take in that resistant resistant microorganisms. And when the individual then comes down with a disease caused by that resistant bacteria or that resistant microorganisms, you will see that despite any drug you give, the individual will not get better. So it's a whole lot of things going on there. So there are a lot of drivers that causes antimicrobial resistance. I've mentioned misuse in humans, taking antibiotics without prescription and not finishing the dose is another cause. Overuse of antibiotics in animals, particularly in farming, and then environmental contamination. I've mentioned that, such as water waste in water system. All these drivers, they all connect together and spread resistance. Now, let us we'll ask ourselves, now, okay, AMR, what is the global burden of AMR? We want to know globally, what is the picture like? A study conducted by the Antimicrobial Resistant Collaborators, they published in 2022, they stated that in 2019, bacterial AMR directly cost 1.27 million deaths worldwide. And that's the deaths that were associated to antibiotics were nearly 5 million deaths. In 2021, 1.14 million direct deaths was reported that is direct death as a result of antimicrobial resistance. And then the associated death was about 4.71. And it is being predicted that by 2050, if nothing is done, if there are no interventions, we may have up to 10 million deaths annually. That is the picture of it. So we see there is a risk ahead. There is a very big thing that is happening, and all hands must be on deck to make sure that this is dealt with. Now, let's look at the picture in Africa. In Africa, AMR is becoming a greater threat to Africans than the HIV thing that we hear about, the HIV and AIDS, tuberculosis, and malaria combined. These three diseases combined together, that AMR is becoming a greater threat than these three diseases combined together. That is serious danger. And you know, Africa, we have a peculiar problem. There is poverty in Africa. There are a lack of, a lot of people live below the normal standard. Let me call it normal economic standard. In fact, somehow, the middle class is being erased. So, and again, children and vulnerable population are at highest risks in Africa. It was also reported that 2 billion to 6 billion annually is going to be used to address the deadly impact of AMR on the African continent. Now, you see, because of the peculiar nature in Africa, this amount of money is a huge amount of money, which can be directed to poverty eradication, provision of good water for Africans, for people living below poverty, you know, good hospitals, good infrastructure, the necessary infrastructure, light, electricity. So imagine the amount of money that would be used annually to address the deadly impact of AMR if we do not do anything about AMR in Africa. And Africa, very peculiar, there is limited access to second line drugs. Like there's the first line drugs used in treatment of certain diseases. Okay, they are there, but they had limited access to the second line drugs. There's also high mortality risks and food security challenges in Africa. And so our own problem is seriously compounded by the nature of our economy. So this is a serious problem that we all have to put hands together and find solutions to. Then the next, we want to look at the impact of AMR on communities. What is the impact? They're in various ways. In health-wise, the affected individual has a longer illness. So since the drugs are not working, you see the individual becomes sick for a longer time. I want to take myself, for example, for the past 2 weeks, I've been down as a result of flu. Okay, when I had these symptoms initially, I visited the hospital, I was given some drugs. There were antibiotics included, which I took, but I didn't get better. In fact, it got worse. I was losing breath. Okay, my chest was very heavy. I had to go back again. The drug was changed to another antibiotics before it worked. What does it tell you? That the organism was resistant to the first one. This is the antimicrobial resistance that we're talking about. All right. So, and you know, like I said, we have mentioned many drivers of antimicrobial resistance. So there's longer illness, something that would have maybe taken a course of 1 week, 5 days to 1 week. You see the individuals being sick for 14 days or 21 days. Okay. There are also higher death rates. There are limited treatment options. If we do not have access to this second line drugs, what are the alternatives that we can? What are those alternatives? That is why research is now being that is why research is now going towards alternative research on alternative preparations that can be used in place of antibiotics. For example, probiotics, maybe use of probiotics and some traditional medicine, but of course has to be, you know, the potency, the efficacy, and everything has to be established in the lab. You know, everyone is thinking towards that another direction of if the antibiotics are not there, what can we use as an alternative in the future? So these are where researches are going on. But then there are impacts on the economy. Higher medical costs, of course. You buy the first antibiotic, it's not working. You have to buy a second one and perhaps a third one if the organism is resistant. And then we have reduced productivity, additional budget strain. Okay, so these are some of those impacts on the communities. Then we also have impacts on food security. We could have livestock losses if the drugs are not working. Of course, the animals may die. And then we could have unsafe food systems. And of course, all these things cause hardship on the farmer. Social well-being, causing family stress. If your child, you are not getting better, of course, the emotional, the financial stress, it's enormous. Then inequality, reduce trust in the healthcare. The patient might not understand that is harboring some resistant bacteria, resistant organism. And then you begin to think that the doctor do not know what they are doing. I went to this hospital and they prescribed drug, it did not work. I don't think these people know what they are doing in this hospital. Let me change to another hospital. You see, so it's a whole lot of issue. So it has serious impact on our communities. And when we talk about communities, I want us to see it, understand what community is. Community is not you begin to imagine a village somewhere very far, a village that is very, very, very far from you. No, communities, you have various kinds of communities. Schools can be communities. Where you live, your area where you live is a community. Your church group is a community. The mosque where you attend, the group of your family members or friends that attend such gathering is a community. Okay? And so we'll talk about that more when we talk about what are the preventive strategies we can do. So when we talk about community, please let's not see it as a distant, circumscribed area as a community. So now we want to understand what One Health is. Now, One Health, as defined by WHO, it is an integrated, unifying approach that aims to sustainably balance and optimize the health of people, animals, and ecosystem. So you see, this is the triad of One Health. In between, they intersect. Animal health, human health, environmental health, they intersect. For example, the antibiotics that is used in chicken can lead to resistant bacteria that will contaminate our food and water and eventually reach humans. So you can see the health of that human, the use of that antibiotics in chicken, and then with the waste as it gets into our environment, our water, our food, these are issues. Like I said, they are multi-sectorial. So it is an approach which is used to balance and optimize the health of people, animal, and ecosystem. Now, very importantly in One Health, there must be collaboration in One Health. In a situation, One Health is a situation whereby professionals is interdisciplinary, like I said, it's multi-sectoral. Professionals in animal health, in human health, and environmental health come together to collaborate on issues that affect these three sectors. Because as it affects humans, it affects animals, and then it affects our environment. So you will see collaboration between veterinarians, between human medics, paramedicals, the ecologists, our environmentalists, policymakers, and our communities. This is collaboration. There is need for collaboration. So there is no single sector, in this three of this sector, no single one can solve the problem of antimicrobial resistance. The veterinarians cannot solve it alone. Neither would the human medics solve it or the ecologists solve this problem. There must be collaboration between these three sectors. Collaboration is the heart of One Health approach. The three C's in One Health is communication, collaboration, and coordination. This three is very important so that issues that affect these three sectors are sustainably and effectively tackled. All right. Then we now look at what are those community level actions that can be taken. What are the community level actions? What are those strategies that can be taken to prevent antimicrobial resistance? All right. So you see, communities, I tried to explain what communities, I talked about community before. Do not see it as a distant village, as a distant community, that community that is in your village. No. The community you have where you live, the estate where you live is a community. The school that you attend, your university is a community. The church that the individuals that attend, all of you share a common interest, a common goal. That's a community. Now, you say these communities are powerful in this fight against AMR. So there are important things we can do as members of the communities to reduce the effect of AMR or to prevent antimicrobial resistance. One is to avoid self-medication. It is always do complete prescribed doses. Complete prescribed doses. Do not misuse drugs. Do not abuse drugs. If you are sick, it is advised to contact a health professional, a doctor who will prescribe the drugs you need to take. He will tell you whether or not to, based on his training, he knows whether or not you need that antibiotics at that point in time. I want to also give an example. Recently, we have these day-to-day experiences. Recently, my son was sick. I took him to the hospital. He was having stomach cramps and a bit of a fever, but the temperature was not above, it was below 37 though. It was not above 37. So the doctor saw it. Okay, they did fecal microscopy. They had to do a microscopy of the stool to check whether there are any parasites, and also check, do susceptibility tests too, to check whether there are any bacteria and all of that. So his symptoms he presented was kind of acute. His stomach was paining him and all of that. So the doctor said he wants to, first of all, do an MCS first. After doing the MCS, he will now know what antibiotics is going to give you. Lo and behold, after that test, no bacteria was seen. No bacteria was seen. And within 1 or 2 days, the young man was okay. What really happened was that he didn't ease himself. He had not gone to the toilet a day or two. And so, children, from time to time, they have this colic problem. And so his intestines were impacted. And by the time he was able to release himself, he got better. He had no fever and he was good. If it were maybe before now that I'm not enlightened about AMR, the next thing you are seeing is complaining, let me get these antibiotics, get tetracycline. You go to the chemist. The chemist, because he wants to sell, he will mix tetracycline, erythromycin, flagyl, all of them, mix them together, and then the young man takes. You see? So it is always good. This is where antimicrobial stewardship comes in. All right. So it is not good to abuse antibiotics. It's not good to abuse drugs. So one other important thing that we can do is to promote hygiene and sanitation, support vaccination programs, and farmers should use antibiotics responsibly. And as per environment wise, we are to promote hygiene and sanitation, prevent what they call open defecation. Defecate openly, where the feces find its way into open water sources where some individual drink. And eventually this water, when used as irrigation on our farms, this organism gets on our vegetables, gets on the fruit, and eventually lands on the market table for humans to consume. So these are some of those things at the level of community we can do to help in the fight against AMR. Now, we'll look at awareness in Africa. Awareness is key. No matter the kind of research, the result we get from research in our labs or wherever, or data, something, maybe routine surveillance data that we have gotten, if this information is not communicated to the receivers of this communication, vis-a-vis the communities, the policymakers, if this information do not get to them, it is a waste of time. It's another project that is completed and binded and is in the library shelf. So awareness is key. It's good to communicate that finding. Let the people know what the risks is, what AMR is, and what risks what risks lies ahead of us. Awareness is key. So campaigns are necessary in local languages. It's not English is yes, in Nigeria is our lingua franca, okay? But then we have local languages, lots of local languages and dialects. It's not everybody that understands English. You can imagine you trying to communicate this to someone who does not understand English, and you are talking about antimicrobial resistance. Look at the word myself. Even before you say it, you have to bite your tongue if you're not careful. So you have to communicate it in a language that the individual understands, that the community understands, so that they will understand it, understand the risks, and know what they can do to combat antimicrobial resistance. So campaign in local languages help people to understand AMR in a way that would connect to their daily lives. The individual now knows that I should not take antibiotics anyhow. When I am sick and I see the doctor and antibiotics are prescribed, I will make sure when you speak it in that Igbo language, you speak it in Tiv, you speak it in Idoma, you speak it in the South African dialect, you speak it in the Kenyan dialect, in that language of that community, and the person understands it. You see, there's likelihood, a great likelihood of a change in behavior, and that is what we want, inspiring change. So it is very important. This program is coming at a very good time. It's coming at a very good time, bringing the message to us that we need to communicate the message of AMR in our local languages. So youth champions like you are vital in spreading this message and inspiring change. So I will call us to action. AMR, we should know that AMR is a global and local threat. It's a global. I have shown us what the burden looks like globally and what it looks like in Africa. And then there are data for the various countries. It's shocking. Now, how do we solve AMR? The only solution is using a One Health approach. The scenarios where we have seen here shows how interconnected animal health, human health, and environmental health is. So it is One Health approach. So this specialists, professionals in these areas are to come together, communicate, collaborate, and coordinate actions that will prevent antimicrobial resistance. Importantly, communities play a vital role. And communities are not the distant village we see. There are these people that are within us, around us, that are around us. Various communities. So they play a very important role. So I will say to you today, be an AMR language champion in your community, in your school, in your university, in your village, in your market. Be an AMR language champion in your community. They just concluded One Health Africa Summit 1.0. I ended my presentation by telling us that the fight against AMR is not won in laboratories alone. I still stand on that. Yes, this fight is won in the classrooms, won in the communities, and conversations which are led by the youth. And I want to add to that, that these conversations can be initiated in our local languages so that members of the community can connect it to their daily lives. These are some of the references which I used in giving us some of the data we have. And thank you for listening. And it's been an honor being here. Thank you very much. Over to you, moderator.
Amazing.
Wow. That was so amazing. Thank you so much, Dr. Nancy, for first honoring our invitation and secondly for the wonderful everyone on this call has learned something new. And again, it reminds us how much AMR is such a big concern. Thank you so much, ma'am, for that wonderful presentation. Really appreciate the insights. Looking at the figures of global burden of AMR, it's actually scary. It's actually scary, and it reminds us that if we don't act today, our future is not going to be secured. So it's again a kind reminder for all of us as AMR language champions to do the best we can do. So I want to, on behalf of the Voice VG team, sincerely appreciate you for the wonderful presentation. We've learned a whole lot. So moving forward, we'll be taking questions from our speaker, from the participant, and we have 15 minutes to do that. So if you have a question, please you can raise your hand and I will give you the room to ask your question. Meanwhile, a post test will be shared with you by the Voice VG team. So please do well to take the post test now, and it will be, once you begin it, it will be closed in 5 minutes. So please do the needful. So yeah, we'll move over to questions now. So on my, in no particular order, I have Yona Tashobia. I'm sorry if I didn't pronounce the name correctly. So Yona, you can ask your question. Please just be as brief as you can. Hit the question straight away. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Doctor. I want to appreciate our lecturer for the uh, guidelines. Now, I wanted her to come again and give me some more clarity on the drivers of the MR, because that thing has disturbed me slightly during the pre-test, and I really wanted to understand really the drivers. Are they the causers? Are they those people to step MR like that? Thank you.
Can I respond?
Okay, so Dr.
You
Nancy,
want-
okay, yes,
Yeah.
thank you, ma'am.
All right, I can respond. Okay. All right. I hope you can still hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So, the drivers and causes of antimicrobial resistance. Yes, they are yes, as drivers, there are causes. That is, I use that word, causes and drivers. So one, I said overuse of antibiotics. Overuse of antibiotics is a driver of antimicrobial resistance. Now the question is how? Okay, when you overuse antibiotics, remember that the antibiotics you're using, the intention is to kill or to inactivate a particular antibacterial. In the case of antibiotics now, remember it's not just antibiotics. It could be antibacterial, it could be antifungal, it could be antiparasitics. So that is what antimicrobials. So, but I'm just trying to use antibacterial. Now, the antibiotics you take is expected to target a particular susceptible bacteria, which is supposed to be causing an infection in you or a disease in you. Now, overuse of that antibiotics, there is a reason why when you buy drug, they tell you take it for 5 to 7 days or for 10 days. After that period, you are expected to stop because it can lead to things like this. Now, overuse of that antibiotics, what it does, it keeps suppressing, of course, killing any of that bacteria that is present. This is where selective pressure, there's something we call selective pressure comes in. Now, as it suppresses the susceptible bacteria, the resistant ones remain in the gut biome. It remains in the system. You know, the antibiotics will work on that susceptible one. Then the one that is not susceptible is there, is resistant. So over time, it suppresses these susceptible ones and leaving out the resistant ones. Remember that all these things are intertwined. Now, the individual now practices open defecation. This individual, instead of using the toilet, now decides to go to an open field, decides to donate his feces as manure for plants or vegetables. And so remember that these feces, of course, may contain these resistant bacteria in the feces or in the secretions or the excretions of the individual. Now, this is laid there in the environment. This is where environment comes in now. For example, you have runoff when rain falls and all of that, or through irrigation, or when the farmer is watering his plant, or rain falls and through runoff water, the organism now, the resistant organism runs or follow the water that is falling on the ground, and via what drainages, it contaminates our drainages. From there, it gets to the open water sources. Open water sources like the river, the stream, the ponds, and all of that. Now, if the individual that comes to drink, that there are people that drink water from the river or the stream now. Now, if this person comes without boiling or filtering the water, this individual comes down with may carry the resistant bacteria by way of water. It could also be that from that water is used in the irrigation of our vegetables, of our plants. The organism finds itself on our vegetables, on food or whatever. And then when man consumes this food again, perhaps maybe without proper washing, or without that is where hygiene comes in, proper hygiene and sanitation. So you see, if we use proper hygiene and sanitation again, you cut off that cycle. Now, but if proper hygiene is not there, the individual takes in this resistant bacteria. And if the individual comes down with an infection that is caused, or if this bacteria causes an infection, maybe perhaps the immune system of the individual is down, or whatever happens, and then the disease, the resistant bacteria causes disease in the individual, you will see, remember, is already resistant to that particular bacteria, to bacteria A. And it is that antibiotics A. That antibiotics A is known in treating this particular infection. And then when you use it to treat, the individual doesn't get better. So it leads to antimicrobial resistance. The person stays sick longer. So that is why it is a driver, it's a cause. It's not just one cause. It links from one. It links to this, to this, to that. Now, if you look under the in this image now, you look at this image, you have the bacterial cell you are looking at there. You have a section, you have contaminated food, the organism from contaminated water gets to the food, gets to humans, from humans again through open defecation, or poor hygiene, it gets to contaminate our water, and then it is a cycle. So that's one aspect. Then the other aspect, the pharmaceuticals, some pharmaceutical companies, effluent, that is wastewater now from these companies, could contain these antibiotics in water. It will contain these antibiotics in water. And these antibiotics in water, or antibiotic residues in water. And these residues get, of course, to man. Get to man via food or water. Also, and these antibiotic residues, or the antibiotics now, of course, perhaps will get exposed to bacteria in the environment. These bacteria, various kinds of, using the various mechanism of resistance, like I mentioned earlier, either through genetic mutation or horizontal gene transfer, maybe via this efflux pump, or production of beta-lactam enzymes, develop resistant mechanism. They become resistant to that antibiotics, okay? Such that in the future, when the bacteria gets into human host or animal host, that particular drug cannot work on the organism, because previously it was exposed to that antibacterial agent, or to that antimicrobial agent, and because it was continually being exposed, it developed resistance mechanism, and now in the present moment is now resistant and cannot be inhibited in the presence of that organism. So like what I'm saying is that there are a lot of causes, and they are intertwined. And that interconnectedness moves from the human health to the animal, from the animal to our environment. And that is why it's good to use a One Health approach to tackle the issue of AMR. I hope to a great extent I've answered your question. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am, for answering that question. I believe that's very clear. So we'll take the next question from Bart Simon. Meanwhile, the post-test survey is shared in the chat box. If you are yet to kindly fill the post-survey test, and please refrain from the use of AI. This is not an exam. We just want to know how what you've learned in the process. So please do not use AI. The score you get from the test is not going to be a criteria for getting to phase 2 of the project. So please, we just need your sincere answers from the training. So, Bart Simon, please, you can ask your question.
All right, sir. Thank you. Thank you, sir. Yes, there is this thing I've been wondering about, and today we have an expert in our midst, so I wish to ask. The practice of the use of medicated soap. There are some soap that say they are medicated soap, and from the look of things, they don't. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes,
we
from my
can.
end, I can hear you.
Hello, I don't know if you can hear me, sir.
Yes, from my end, I can hear you. You can go ahead, please.
Okay, so I was talking about the practice of using medicated soap. Ma, since you are an expert, I want to hear your take about this use of medicated soap, considering the emerging resistance to antimicrobial agents by microorganisms. Do we still encourage the use of medicated soap?
Okay. Okay. Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, I
Yes,
can
ma'am.
hear you. Can hear you.
Okay. All right. Okay. Your question is a very valid question. Thank you for that question. Now, medicated soap. We know medicated soap contains antibacterial agents, yeah? And we have talked about overuse of antibacterials, of course, leads to AMR. Yes, medicated soaps are good. They are used to reduce the spread of infection, but their overuse may contribute to antimicrobial resistance. I agree with you there. And they do this by promoting bacterial adaptation and resistance. Because when the particular organism it's continually being the organism is continually being exposed to this antibacterial agent, like I said, over time they become easily to that um, adapted to that agent and then develop resistance. The case of this case of triclosan is an active ingredient like triclosan. Yes, the risks of the use of medicated soap had heightened. The prevalence. Let me call it prevalence or the occurrence of AMR. So it is indicated. It is indicated to use it when you have an infection. Use medicated soap for wound or infection. Let's say you have a skin rash or you have a skin infection. It is good to use medicated soap. But afterwards, do not use it. Don't use it daily. If you don't have any need for it, if you don't have any need for that, don't use it. Again, it's also good to use medicated soap to wash our hands with clean water. It's just like using water and soap, or you're using what they call this one, what they call it again, hand sanitizers. Okay, when you don't have water and soap, you can use hand sanitizer. So wash your hands with regular soap and clean water. Okay, if you have regular soap, use regular soap. Okay, remember, if you don't have any need for it on your skin, do not use it. Do not use it. It's not advisable to use it, because in the long run, the organism, because there are some organisms we see on our skin, they will become resistant to it. Okay, and then any expert that is prescribing medicated soap knows that it's an indication for it, and will tell you when you should use it for the period of time. So what I would say as a public health specialist, I would recommend that you use regular soap and water for daily hygiene. Okay, and use medicated soap when it is indicated. You have a skin infection, you have a wound, medicated soap is indicated. It is necessary to avoid marketing medicated soap as a everyday solution. It's not good. It's not, I do not ascribe to that. Yes. So this is what I would say. Yes, they cause resistance in the long run. It causes resistance in the long run. And we should only use medicated soap only when there is need to use it, like a situation of skin disease and all of that. And I want to, who knows in the future, or maybe something is happening. I don't have that detail right now. Whether NAVDAC is doing something about that. Is it still necessary to have, the question now is it still necessary to have this medicated soap on our shelves? We cannot totally bound it, because in some situations, some individuals may have skin infection. And so the need will arise. But using it regularly is not advisable. That is what I can say on this matter. Thank you very much.
All right. Thank you very much, Dr. Nancy, for that answer. Yeah, using it when it's not needed is not advisable. Thank you very much, ma. So we'll take two more questions. We are going to take a question from Israel. China HRM. Please pardon
Okay.
me if the name is
Thank
not pronounced correctly. Then Miss Sule Shamira should get prepared. Yeah.
All right. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Ma. Good evening, everyone. So I have a couple of questions here. Number one, I want to know how does antimicrobial resistance impact the use of traditional medicine in communities? Then number two, I also want to know if there are risks of AMR arising from the use of traditional or herbal remedies alongside antibiotics.
Please, come again, that second one.
So
the second one.
I said I want to know if there are risks of AMR arising from the use of traditional or herbal remedies, and also using them together with antibiotics, because I have seen cases of there some, even though it's not advisable, but people do it. All these traditional herbal people, that they will mix their concoction, their herbal concoction, with antibiotics, because they tell you that, oh, it works better. So are there also risks arising from this particular area? Then lastly, out of curiosity, I want to know if I want to understand how resistant infection in children differ clinically from adults. Yeah. Thank you so much.
Okay. All right. You first, you have three questions. How does the other one? How does the AMR, right, impact the use of traditional medicines, right?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So what I would say here is now there's what we call ethno medicine. Okay. So what I know, I'm not an ethno medical practitioner, but like I said, there is a drive now to look for alternatives to antibiotics. There is drive now to look for alternatives to antibiotics. The question is, what happens? What happens if our first line antibiotics fail? Second line antibiotics fail? Third line antibiotics fail? What happens? So that is why there is a renewed interest in herbal medicine or alternatives to complement antibiotics. Okay, so, and I know that at least I have seen some remedies, some of the herbal remedies that have been claims to have antibacterial effects, So, but these things have to go through a lot of standardization. The claims, of course, have to be proven, standardized. The active ingredient extracted is standardized before it comes into before it comes into use. So what I can say is that AMR, it reduces the effectiveness of traditional medicine by limiting the ability to treat infection. So there is a renewed interest. There's a renewed interest in herbal remedies or alternatives like the use of probiotics or plant extracts or part of plant extracts that have antibacterial activities. If those alternatives can be gotten and standardized, of course, then we have hope when our first line or second, third line antibiotics fail. Now, about the question about how pediatrics react to, I'm not first, I'm not a human medic. I'm not a pediatrics doctor. So I would not want to say something that is out of my specialization. So I wouldn't really know because, the way children react to drugs or react to situations or health conditions are kind of different from how adults react to. So at this moment, I may not have an answer to that. Then the one you asked about, what are the risks from the use of traditional or herbal medicine or using them together? Again, I cannot say all of this because there are a lot of testing. There's something we call LD50, the toxicity level, LD50, all of these need to be done experimentally to be able to determine the toxicity level, how lethal a particular plant extract, a particular herbal remedy is before, you begin to design, experiment different doses and know which one is the effective dose. So I really cannot authoritatively say something on that aspect, using of traditional medicine and then together with antibiotics. I know some people do that, but I know very well, again, at least from the when I was still young, if you are taking antibiotics, you're taking any of these modern medicine, you don't combine them with traditional medicine. So this individual that is actually taking traditional medicine and antibiotics, I don't know what the person is actually looking out to achieve. Or perhaps the person thinks that the herbal medicine might potentiate or the synergistic effect, maybe thinking that there will be synergistic effect. It is possible, but again, all these things can only be proven experimentally by looking at the data to see whether there is a synergistic effect or whether you potentiated it. But I cannot, from here where I am on my decks and presenting at this moment, to tell you whether there is a synergistic effect or whether the other one potentiates the effects. I hope in one way or the other I have said one or two things that you can pick from it. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, ma, for that clarification. So we'll take two more questions. So please, Geoffrey and Shamira, please, just one question and be straight to the point, right? So we are already past our time, so we want to keep to that. So Shamira, please, your question.
Okay, thank you, Doctor, for the wonderful presentation. So, I am Shamira, and my question is, I've heard of farmers who use antibiotics as growth enhancers, like they add them to animal feeds to make sure the animals grow very rapidly. So how does that affect the humans indirectly, like antibiotics to make sure the animals grow very rapidly? How does that affect humans? How does that contribute to antimicrobial resistance, not only in animals, but also in humans? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for that questions. It's been a long year practice as antibiotics are used as growth promoters in livestock. They're used as growth promoters in livestock to improve feed efficiency and then accelerate weight gain. When you have an healthy animal, the animal is not suffering from any infection or disease, there's a high likelihood of the animal, putting on weight. So it will accelerate weight gain But this practice is now heavily criticized because of the issue of antimicrobial resistance. Remember, if this animal is being bombarded with this drug in each of its rations, these drugs are there. The animal is continually being exposed to these antibiotics. Now, these antibiotics, of course, will suppress, inactivate, or kill susceptible bacteria, leaving out the resistant bacteria. Now, this resistant bacteria remains in the ecosystem, whether it is in the environment, whether it's within the animal, okay? So it remains there and the population grows. And then even the susceptible ones, because they are in the same biome, there is a propensity of gene transfer, resistant gene transfer. That is the transfer of the resistant gene in that resistant one to susceptible bacteria that are within the animal. And when this occurs, that susceptible one becomes resistant. It means that in the presence of that antibiotics will not kill that bacteria. It will not inactivate that bacteria. So the population of the resistant one is increased, continued being increased until it finds itself in the environment. And by way of water contamination, food contamination, sewage contamination of water, it finds its way back to humans. Now, when humans now come down with the infection or disease, and then you treat with the antibiotics that is supposed to, take care of that disease or infection, the individual doesn't get better because that organism has acquired resistance, or that the organism moved from the animal population, the resistant organism moved from the animal population, and through food or water contamination got to humans. And so when you treat the human, the individual do not get well. So this is how the use of these growth promoters promotes antimicrobial resistance. Like I said, it was a long year practice. I said it's used in improving feed conversion. So the feed conversion is now high, and then there is weight gain on the animal. So producers keep using it. But in the process of using it, you'll be suppressing harmful bacteria. You'll be suppressing the antibacteria, but then the resistant ones keep growing, are there. You keep maintaining it because of the selective pressure. The resistant one remains there until it finds its way into human population or transfer that resistance to the susceptible bacteria in that animal. And like I said, it's a whole lot of intersection of drivers that cause this AMR. I would suggest that you take your time to study that causes and drivers of AMR. You will have a very good understanding of how antimicrobial resistance, develop. Thank you very much. Now, there's something I did not say. Also, apart from this resistance, again, when you use antimicrobials in humans for food safety, it will lead to the development of residues in food. And that's a very big problem. The antibiotics, parts of the antibiotics, traces of this will remain in the meat of the animal, in the milk, in the egg, and all of these possess health risks. So that's another way. And constant exposure to these antibiotics in food, again, goes through that cycle of suppressing the susceptible bacteria and leaving out the resistant ones. The susceptible ones, gaining resistance from the resistant factors from the resistant ones. And then the cycle continues. So please take out time to study this image on causes and drivers of antimicrobial resistance. You will understand it very well. Thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much, Ma, for that clarification. So we'll take the last question from Joe.
So good evening.
Geoffrey. So Geoffrey, if you're still
good evening, am I audible? Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
So my question was, Madam Nancy, you talked about impact of AMR on the community. I would just like to ask you to just in another domain to how you can help us relate the how can poor infection prevention control impact on AMR, now the relationship between the poor infection control and its impact on AMR, because I'm not sure if they're the same, but you just talked about the impact of AMR on the community. Please, if you got an question, thank you.
Can you come again? Come again, please. Come again.
Oh, my question is,
Yes.
how can poor infection prevention control impact on AMR? Because I can see you just give us the notes on impact on AMR on the community, or are they the same?
Okay. No. Sorry, excuse me. Now, thank you very much for that question. Okay. So, is one of the drivers poor infection prevention and control, accelerates antimicrobial resistance. What it does, because of how it does, is that it will increase the spread of the resistant pathogen in the hospital. First of all, is what do we even mean by infection prevention and control? That's the thing. All right. Preventive measures, what you are supposed to do to prevent an infection and control an infection, whether it's in the farm, whether it's in the hospital, whether it's in the community or livestock settings. Okay, so these practices, these infection prevention controls, if they are not instituted, if they are poor, they will accelerate antimicrobial resistance. By what? Increasing the spread of the resistant pathogens in the environment or in the ecosystems, whether it's in the hospital, in our farm or communities. Okay, and in Africa here, most of the times, because of as in developing countries, let's just use the word developing countries, we have weak infection and prevention control system, and this leads to faster transmission of resistant bacteria. So let's say, for example, if you have poor hand hygiene, because that's a method of infection prevention and control individually. So if you have poor hand hygiene, say, for example, you went to a community, let's say in your environment, you've had somebody who had, or animals that are reared within the environment, passes stool, which may contain resistant organism in this stool. And this stool used as manure for our plants, our vegetables, all right? And say you went on a hike, or you went gardening, you went gardening, maybe in your farm planting. Now, without, after planting or so, you did not wash your hands before you ate, or you used the toilet, you went to ease yourself, on the field, sorry, excuse me, and after easing yourself, you didn't wash your hands with water and soap. Or in the hospitals, for example, the use of, let's say, surgical equipment, let's say patient A was operated upon, and these surgical equipment were not, they were washed but not sterilized. That is a poor prevention and a poor IPC. So when you have a poor IPC, it will increase the transmission of resistant organisms. If the organism on that hospital equipment now, hospital forceps and all of that, surgical equipment, if it contains resistant organism, or your hands after touching the ground, after farming, there were resistant organism in the feces, in the manure that was used on the land. You didn't wash your hands properly. This resistant bacteria gets into your system. It gets into your system and can move between patients and can move from person to person. Okay, so infection prevention control plays an important role in reducing the risks or the burden of antimicrobial resistance. The overuse of antibiotics in a setting where the IPC is weak or poor, you will see that infection will occur frequently. leading to excessive antibiotic prescription. And there is always bound to be misuse and abuse. So in our hospitals, it is expected that the IPC is top-notch, is strong. I gave the example of the environmental contamination, waste contaminating our environment, spreading to water, spreading to soil, spreading to food. So if we have a system where there's a good waste management, where open defecation is not practiced, where sewage water is treated, we will see that, and the individuals treat their water before they drink. And individuals know that their food, their vegetables, their fruit, they need to wash with water and salt, wash with water and vinegar, and practice good hand hygiene. If this are done, you will see we will break the cycle of AMR. So infection prevention and control is not just seen in the hospitals, in our environments, in our communities, in the hospitals, within us, in our home. We have the elements of infection prevention and controls. And if it is poor or weak, it will fuel antimicrobial resistance. Thank you very much. Hello, moderator.
All right. Thank you very much, ma'am, for that clarification. Geoffrey, I believe that your question has been answered. Unfortunately, we'll not be able to take all. So, want to use this time again to sincerely appreciate you, ma, for the time you've taken for to make your presentation and answer in detail every question that has been asked. We really, really appreciate your presence this evening. And with your permission, we'll be sharing the slides with the champions afterwards. So please, champions, we encourage you to take time if our speaker permits us to share the slide with you. Take time to go through the slide again. It's very, very important for you. And thank you everyone who has joined this evening. For those who had issues with the attendance and all of that, please don't bother yourself. We'll look into the issue. So once again, thank you so much for joining this evening. Ma, I don't know if you have something to say before we close. Thank you.
Okay. I want to use this opportunity to thank the organizers of this program for finding me worthy to share my knowledge in this platform. Thank you very much. It's been an honor and it's been a privilege, and I'm open to future collaborations. I'm not just only trying to get things out, to dish it out there. I'm also learning and improving myself to make sure that we pass this message out there. Is really scary. It's really scary. Like the last experience, I told you I was not feeling fine, Dr. Ndu, and I was scared. I was wondering what was wrong with me, as in, have I developed antimicrobial resistance? The antibiotics is not working. But thankfully, the second one I took worked. And so this is a message that will continue to, give it out in the community. And I'm very happy that this is coming at a very good time with these AMR language champions. It's important that not just we using the English language, but we use our local languages to communicate this information out there so that people understand it. I just imagine somebody coming out in the TV or radio speaking TIV, explaining all of these things, and individual understands it in Hausa and all of that. They understand it, and you see we'll begin to have some changes. So thank you very much. And I encourage each and every one of us here, the champions, to follow through this program and make sure you do what you need to do, research what you need to research to make sure you complete this program, so that in the end, it will be a worthwhile investment on your own part. Thank you once again for having me. Over and out. Dr. Ondu, I am and John.
Okay, thank you very much, ma'am.
All right. Thank you so much, man, for me. We're really, really glad to have you all join, and we believe that you have learned a lot from this evening. We wanted to have a breakout session this evening, but we have a bit of a technical issue at the moment. But then we'll be sending out reflection questions for you to just reflect on today's presentations. And yeah, so thank you so much, and do have a wonderful evening or afternoon, as your case may be. Thank you.